Moana creatives on working closely to honor Polynesian culture and traditions, and why representation matters in the live-action film. The Odyssey, why Elon Musk and his troll army's attacks aren't just silly, but wildly inaccurate. I mean, they gotta see it, right? Right? The Odyssey is an adaptation of the famous Greek mythological poem, which follows the Greeks after finally winning the Trojan War. Specifically, the journey home of Odysseus, king of Ithaca, who was the one who devised the ruse that was the Trojan horse. What should have been a short, uneventful voyage back quickly becomes perilous. Meanwhile, Odysseus' wife, Penelope, draws many suitors who pine for her hand in marriage and carelessly drain their resources as her husband is believed dead. Their son Telemachus tries to do his best to navigate this situation, but it's clear Odysseus is desperately needed to bring order back to Ithaca and restore his family. Hey everyone, I'm the guy with no name. Thanks for stopping by the channel. Real quick, I just wanted to say that if you enjoy this video, show your support by liking and subscribing. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers and I'm getting very close. The Odyssey was written and directed by Christopher Nolan and stars Matt Damon as Odysseus, Tom Holland as Telemachus, Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Robert Pattinson as Antinous, one of the chief suitors hoping to marry the Queen of Ithaca, John Leguizamo as Eumaeus, a blind swineherd and loyal servant of Odysseus, and Charlize Theron as Calypso, a nymph who takes part in delaying Odysseus' journey home. I've been a big fan of the Odyssey and of Odysseus as a character, and I actually view the whole Trojan War / Odyssey as some of the best storytelling that's ever been written. There's a reason why pretty much everyone still learns about it to some degree in literature. But yeah, when Christopher Nolan, one of my favorite directors, decided he was going to do the Odyssey, I was over the moon. I thought it was a great match. I thought, you know, I read some interviews about him saying he was a big fan of the Odyssey, even as a kid. And so I thought, okay, this is in good hands. But the real question is though, was it actually in good hands? And I don't think it's a simple yes or no. Let's talk about the Odyssey as a movie, just in and of itself before we get into anything controversial. For starters, ever since I read the Odyssey, I always thought it deserved a big budget movie adaptation, and it seems like we never really got that. We never really got that definitive big budget movie. We got, if I'm not mistaken, a 1980s straight to TV miniseries, which actually, I remember watching it in class, one of my literature classes, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. There's some dated aspects to it, and you can definitely tell it doesn't have the biggest budget, but what they're able to accomplish was really impressive. And even most recently, we got The Return with Ralph Fiennes, which basically took the Odyssey, split it in half, and just told essentially the second half of the story, and also removed like all the supernatural elements about it, which was a little bit interesting. But at the end of the day, I did enjoy it, but it wasn't that definitive version. So with the Odyssey, I was hoping it would be that definitive version. Let's talk about budget. They clearly had a big budget for this. You can see it all on screen. It's very well done, very well shot. Those are probably the strongest aspects about the movie. I also did enjoy the musical score as well by Ludwig Göransson. Some people I heard complaining about it, but to me, I mean, I've actually heard, and way back to my music appreciation class, I've heard some really early music, and some of the music did involve like clanging and stuff like that. I thought the overall theme that's woven throughout the Odyssey really played well and really fit the tone and even helped create the tone. Christopher Nolan as a director almost did a great job in my opinion. I liked a lot of what he did. I mean, looking at the Odyssey and what's in the movie, I'm sure there were lots of daunting scenes from a directorial standpoint, and most of the time he did a great job and knocked it out of the park, and as far as my opinion goes. But most of the fight scenes were good, but some of them were not as well choreographed or as well directed or shot as I felt they should have been, and it stood out, sometimes like a sore thumb. Especially in particular, let's just say there's an important fight scene in the movie that I was pretty underwhelmed by, and that's actually one of my biggest complaints about the movie. It was not very well choreographed. the directing was just not that great, and there were some shots that looked kind of almost goofy, and that was very surprising to me. So I think that while it might come across like I'm nitpicking his directing, I think there's some big issues with it. Also, I felt like there were scenes with dialogue that the delivery was just too fast and the back and forth was too quick. There was like barely any beat between one person talking to another person talking, and I'm sure that has to do with them being directed to speak at a certain speed and respond at a certain speed. And maybe it was to keep the intensity going, keep the pacing going, but I just felt that was a mistake. It was hard for me personally to keep up with the dialogue and make sure I'm hearing everything. Speaking of hearing the dialogue, I felt like his biggest offenses are The Dark Knight Rises or Tenet when it comes to having a hard time hearing the dialogue and really needing subtitles to catch everything. I felt like this one was a bit better. Now, Christopher Nolan as a writer is a much different story. It's a lot more nuanced because in some ways I thought he did a great job, in other ways not so much. But let's start with the positives. I feel like he overall adapted the plot of the Odyssey in a pretty good fashion. I mean, when you look at, say, the Iliad and Troy versus the Odyssey and the movie, the Odyssey is actually a better adaptation plot-wise. There are many differences, big differences between Troy and the Iliad, and I like Troy, by the way, but there were some changes. I remember, there's certain, say, character death. I was audibly like, what? Because I did not see it coming, because that did not happen in the book. But the Odyssey pretty much sticks to it as far as the plot goes. Now, there are omissions, there are changes that were made, and once again, in pretty much my view of most adaptations, the changes were inferior to the source material, and I pretty much always wish that they would stick closer to the source material when in doubt. I mean, it's a very high bar, but The Lord of the Rings, I thought they adapted the books very well, that they're close to the books. They kind of seem to, at least, if for nothing else, promote the same themes that the books promote, but also, maybe this is heresy, but I feel like some of the changes were actually better than they were in the book. Some of the changes actually improved the story a little bit. So not all of them. There were definitely some I was like, I don't know why Peter Jackson made that decision, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's a great adaptation, whereas the Odyssey kind of more in line with the usual adaptation where, if they kept closer to the source material, would have been better. Also, the dialogue, I'm disappointed in the dialogue. I don't know why they're speaking basically like how modern people speak. I don't know why Tom Holland is saying, my dad will come home, or my dad will come back, or whatever the heck he says. And sorry, I don't buy that argument that, well, I mean, if you want to be really true, he actually should be speaking Greek. So really, why are you saying he should be saying father when that's an English word? I just don't buy that, because can't we all understand, do we not all know common sense that to expect the actors to learn Greek, and by the way, if you want to get really specific, shouldn't they be learning ancient Greek? Because I'm fairly certain that the Greek that people speak nowadays is not the Greek they were speaking way back in those days. So yeah, so now they're supposed to be speaking ancient Greek. So the whole cast is supposed to learn ancient Greek, and then on top of that, the audience is supposed to read subtitles the entire time. I just don't think that's feasible, and I think we can all come to an understanding of, hey, we understand, everyone's speaking English, we get it. We're just supposed to assume that they're actually speaking Greek, but they're speaking English so that we can actually understand them. And no, that doesn't mean they can say whatever they want, because using that argument, you could just say, okay, well, why aren't they using slang? Why isn't Tom Holland saying bet? Why doesn't Odysseus say based? I mean, people should be talking like they talk, at least in, I don't know, Braveheart or Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or, Gladiator. And once they started announcing the cast for this movie, though, most of these felt like really out of the box choices. Like Matt Damon as Odysseus, I never would have expected. Tom Holland as Telemachus, probably never either. Robert Pattinson, Anne Hathaway was probably the least out of the box choice. Like, I was surprised, and then immediately I was like, I think that could work. But Matt Damon for sure surprised me, and same thing with Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson. They all played their parts really well, and even though they're very recognizable people, very big stars, I think they got into the role enough where I didn't just see Matt Damon or Tom Holland or Robert Pattinson. So I was very happy that they weren't near as distracting as I thought they would be. And Matt Damon and Robert Pattinson in particular gave great performances. I will say though, John Leguizamo as Eumaeus, I thought he was miscast. I didn't like him in the role at all. He played up the jerk aspect of Eumaeus, which in the book, Eumaeus is a tougher guy for sure, but he's loyal and very heartfelt, and he's kind of a sweet old man at the end of the day. And so I don't know why they depicted him this way, why John Leguizamo gave him like no heart. Jon Bernthal as Menelaus, I thought he was also miscast, at least the way Menelaus is described in the books. He's red-haired Menelaus for starters, and then also he is depicted as a great warrior at the end of the day, but not as much like a strong, like masculine presence, having a really, strong backbone and everything. Like definitely Agamemnon needs to prop him up a lot. I don't know. I thought Jon Bernthal did the best with what he could. He just didn't look the part at all, really, in my opinion. And then Agamemnon, I don't know why he was depicted that way. He's depicted as this tall, stoic, quiet, menacing, brooding figure, and wears this armor that's almost like when I saw him in the trailers, I thought that was either going to be Hades or Ares, but no, it's Agamemnon. And I don't know. I don't understand why they decided to portray him that way. There wasn't really a point to it. It's not like after watching the movie, I was like, I get why they went that route with him. Like, no, I don't understand. The depiction of Agamemnon in Troy, much better than the depiction here. Oh, and I almost forgot, Charlize Theron as Calypso did an amazing job as well. I have nothing but great things to say about her. She was excellent casting. But let's go ahead and jump into the casting controversy, shall we? So, Lupita Nyong'o as Helen, and also Clytemnestra, because apparently they're twins in this for whatever reason. And then also there's just a very diverse cast throughout. Odysseus, his crew alone, has, I think, at least one representative of each race just about. And yeah, some people have a problem with this, some people don't. And where do I fall on this? Well, I do have a problem with this because I don't want to get into all the weeds. I'm going to try my best not to, but to simplify it as best I can, let's go back to the Variety articles that I alluded to earlier. One, it's a live action movie of Moana. Moana came out in 2016, but yet they're praising it for being respectful of the Polynesian culture and hiring people who are of the right ethnicity for all the parts in the movie, basically. And meanwhile, you have the Odyssey, which is not a Disney movie. It's not a movie that's 10 years old. It is an ancient piece of literature, one of the oldest pieces of literature we have, one of the most critically, acclaimed, like beloved pieces of literature. It's a myth. It's a Greek myth, which makes it very important to Greek culture. And so on the one hand, they're praising a movie that is not near as important as the Odyssey, as being faithful to the source material, essentially. And then this one, they're praising it for not being faithful to the source material, and anyone who's complaining about that are, they're disparaging, basically. So, I don't understand why the double standard. Apparently, a Greek myth isn't viewed as important as a Disney movie. In one case it's okay, in the other case it's not. I just say, why don't we try to cast people who at least look the part? I don't care if the person's Greek or not. It'd be nice, sure, but as long as they just look semi-Greek. It's somewhere in that range, And so Lupita Nyong'o is not in that range. And there are people of different races in the Iliad. In particular, Troy hires lots of different mercenary groups of different races from different places and countries, and so that would be where you hire people like that. So I don't see the problem in hiring people looking the part, and yeah, it does take me out of the movie when clearly These people are all getting passed off as Greek. And I've noticed a lot of conversations around it being a myth. And people, I don't think they're not understanding what a myth is. They're treating it like it's fiction. I've seen many posts mocking people by basically saying like, man, I can't believe that they didn't cast Harkonnens as Harkonnens in Dune. Or I can't believe they didn't cast Kryptonians as Superman and Supergirl. That is not an argument at all, because I don't know if you know this, Krypton is not a real planet. Arrakis, not a real place. Greece, it's a real place. So that's not even remotely the same thing at all. And I think everyone knows that. They have to, right? They have to know Krypton's not real, right? I think people don't understand what a myth is. A myth is not fiction. It is not Batman. It is not Superman. It is not Star Wars. It is not Lord of the Rings. It is something else. It's a story that, first of all, takes place typically in the real world. And it's an ancient story, typically, that people at one time believed to be true. So they believed that Cyclopses existed. They believed in the gods and the goddesses. And so I think if you approach a story, in order to adapt it, you have to meet it where it's at. And where it's at is not fiction, it is myth. At one point, Greeks believed in it. That was their religion. So you have to approach it like that. One other thing I forgot to say that I really liked were the visuals. I thought that it was really hard to tell when something was CGI versus real. At the end of the day, it's a mixed bag for me. There were many things I liked about the Odyssey, many things I didn't like about the Odyssey. Certain things that might feel like nitpicks, but to me, they were just big enough weaknesses that it kind of tainted the movie a bit more than maybe it would have for some people. You know, you might agree with me on all the same points and yet arrive at a different rating. But for me, it's not great. I really thought there was a chance the Odyssey could even be magnificent, but it's not magnificent. It's not great, but I think I gotta say it is good. Anyway, that's my review. Thanks for watching. I'm never going to be one of those reviewers that just trashes something just to trash it, or loves something just to love it and, you know, has no negative things to say. If I do love something, I'm going to be honest. If I hate something, I'm going to be honest. But realistically speaking, there's going to be a lot of movies that I'm gonna dislike but not hate, or like but not love, and I'll always try to be honest about my feelings and thoughts and not sell out to just try to get to one extreme or the other. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my assessment of the Odyssey. If you haven't seen it, do you plan on seeing it? You know, what are your thoughts? I mean, anything you have to say Odyssey related, I'm definitely interested in hearing, and I do try to get to each and every comment. So, like I said, appreciate you guys watching. If you want to watch any of my other videos, I do have one recently of Moana, in fact, the live action version. But until next time, this is the guy with no name, signing off.